2022. Call the meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's do a roll call of members.
Humby.
Here.
Gabriel.
Here.
Harrington.
Here.
Doherty.
Here.
Schmeckel.
Here.
Schuster.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
And Weaver.
Here.
That is 9 present, 0 absent, Your Honor.
Excellent. Let's go to public comment on non-agenda items. Comment on non-agenda items. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and we'll go to number 5, Vice Mayor Pierce.
Thank you, Mayor Weaver. There are no changes to the agenda this evening, so I move that the agenda be set as submitted.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Both aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That takes us to next item on the agenda. In the absence of proclamations or presentations this evening, we'll go to the public hearing. I ask the city clerk to give the announcement for the public hearing.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing of the Laramie City Council will be held Tuesday, January 18th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom for the following purpose. Resolution 2022-11 adopting the bylaws revisions related to Laramie Municipal Code 2.20 Board of Health. All information relative to this matter is available for review at the City of Laramie City Clerk's office at 406 Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming. Anyone wishing to be heard should be present or may be represented by his or her agent at the meeting.
Thank you very much. The public hearing is now open for comments on this item. For any public comments on the adoption of the bylaws revision related to the Board of Health. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Move to the next item, item 6C, announcements.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. There are no announcements for this evening.
All right, no announcements. We'll move to the next item. We have monthly staff recognition.
And thank you again, Mayor and Council. I think the clerk is going to share a quick visual with you. Typically, we would recognize a single staff member each month who really has had exemplary service. But this month, what we chose to do for December was not to recognize one of our staff members, but instead to recognize all of the staff members who are receiving service awards this year. And there is a large list of them. I'm going to go through them quickly. We did invite these folks to join us tonight, but we wanted to take this approach this month just to celebrate the longevity that we have with our organization and how really dedicated our people are. Starting with 5 years of service, we have Dan Ehrenholtz from the fire department. He is a firefighter. Corey Appelhans, who works in LARC, our records and dispatch. Nancy Bartholomew, our own city clerk. Justin Curtright, also a firefighter. Heather Davis is in law enforcement fire dispatch. Todd Fieser, our assistant city manager. Zach Fuchs in fleet maintenance. And Bob Southard, our city attorney, all with 5 years of service. 10 years of service this year, we have Lonnie Wilson, who's our cemetery crew leader. Mike Nyquist is an equipment operator in the fire department. Christy Andrews, you all had a chance to visit with her last week in the work session. She's our HR generalist and currently Deputy Director of Human Resources. Kim Karan also is a law enforcement fire dispatcher. Jody Guerin is our recreation manager. Jennifer Wade, Administrative Services Director. John Wagner is our senior fleet technician. Cindy Williams is Public Works Administrative Coordinator. And Dan Young is also in the fire department. He's an equipment operator. Those folks all have 10 years. Then when we look at 15 years, we have Ralph Lightman, who's a sergeant in the police department. Dan Applehans is a patrol officer. Lori Curry, our soon-to-be retiring human resources director, has been with us for 15 years. Chad Dimmitt is a traffic signal technician. Brian Forster is our code enforcement inspector over at the animal shelter. Jolene Giesey's been with us for many years. She's an assistant there. Our GIS, Geographic Information Systems Analyst, Sean Kraft, is sort of an invisible employee we don't often get to work with, but he's been integral to our GIS function for 15 years now. Mike Shingleton is a senior facilities maintenance worker. And last but not least, Felipe Suazo is a senior solid waste laborer with the city, and all of them having 15 years. Moving on to the big numbers, Cy Cass is in our fire department. He's an equipment operator. He's been with us 20 years. Travis Bosna, 20 years a detective in the police department. David Strain is our meter crew leader, and Robert Austin, as you know, is a police sergeant. So 20 years for those folks, big numbers to celebrate. And then our last two folks, we have had Mike Lytle with us in the water treatment plant, supervising that facility now for some 35 years. And I have to tell you, those are going to be some big shoes to fill if and when Mike ever decides to move on to other options in his life. And then last, we're so pleased to tell you that we've had Greg Simpson in the street department. He's currently a maintenance supervisor, has been with the city of Laramie for 40 years. And I tell you, you'd never know it by looking at him. He doesn't look really a day older than any of us on this call. So we like to thank him for really stellar service. 40 years is notable and worth celebrating, as is Mike Lytle's 35. But even 5 years is great. And I hearken back, Council, just in closing, to the presentation you saw last week from Human Resources, where we showed you how our organization is aging, and we expect to see a lot of turnover probably in the next, probably 5 to 7 years. That's really a nationwide trend with the aging of the baby boomer generation, but I think it is notable how long many of these people have served, and it does reinforce what you heard last week, and then also makes us remember the opportunity that will be available here for other folks who want to build a strong career with the city and experience, this kind of longevity. So thanks to all of these people for their dedication, and we really appreciate it. And thank you for the chance to recognize them here this evening.
Thank you, City Manager. And of course, we also want to congratulate and thank those folks for their years with the city and express our appreciation for that. They're the backbone of all the services that are provided. And we're pleased that they have found the city to be an employer they wanted to stay with for so long.
I do see we have Mike Lytle with us this evening, Mayor. He's one of our attendees, so I'm pleased that he was able to log in and receive that recognition for his many, many years.
Thanks for being here, Mr. Lytle. We do appreciate it, and everything that you've done for the city. Thank you very much. Council members, we do appreciate our city employees, and we'd like to take any opportunity we can to express it. Why don't we now move to our next item on the agenda, item number 7, disclosures by city council members. Are there any disclosures by any members of the council on any of the agenda items coming before the council this evening? Seeing none. That moves us to item number 8, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Weaver. I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Second.
Motion and a second. Councilor Cumby. City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote on the item?
Cumby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
And yes.
That's 9 yeses, 0 no, 0 absent.
Thank you, City Clerk. That motion carries. Brings us now to the regular agenda, item number 10, the regular agenda, and first item on the regular agenda, item number 11, submission of an airport rescue grant agreement for the Laramie Regional Airport. I do believe we have Malia Brown here for us. Malia, it's over to you.
We have to do the motion.
Oh, yeah, we probably better have someone to introduce the item, which I think is Councilmember Schmeckel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Brown. I move that council approve the submission of a grant agreement for the Federal Aviation Administration's Airport Rescue Grant by the Laramie Regional Airport in the amount of $1,093,620 and authorize the mayor and city attorney to sign.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Harrington. Now the item is brought forward and can be discussed, and we'll turn it over to Malia again. Sorry about that.
Good evening, council. I just wanted to say Amy Terrell couldn't be here tonight because she has to be at the county because we're both hearing this item tonight. So I said I would present this for her. But basically, this funding came available in March as part of the ARPA funding, and this is they had eight billion given to airports, and this is what the Laramie Regional Airport will be receiving is $1,093,000 in the grant agreement. This grant will be used mainly for operations, for staffing, and for maintenance and things that we need to have at the airport, and that's what it's used for. In the cover sheet, I did go over into other stuff that could be used for, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything. But we're just trying to get the agreement so we can get all the things done that we need done out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? Quick question for me, Malia. Is there anything different about this grant from previous grants that are provided to the FAA for similar?
It's very similar. It's just a new funding source, and so it will be, at the airport, the FAA. That we have a person dedicated for FAA and YDOT grants, and they actually do the grant allocations over there and manage those grants.
Thank you. See if there's any questions. Folks like me. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment on that item. Council? City Clerk, can I have a roll call vote?
Harrington,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses, 0 no, 0 absent.
Thank you, City Clerk. That motion carries.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Malia, for being here. We appreciate it. We'll take us to item number 12. Councilmember Schuster.
Thank you. The title is Resolution 20-22-9, Budget Amendments for the Fiscal Year 2021. I move to approve Resolution 2022-09, transferring unencumbered or unexpected appropriations balances from one fund to another fund and amending the appropriations for the fiscal year 2021 to 2022 annual budget of the City of Laramie, Wyoming, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
There's a motion and a second from Vice Mayor Pierce.
Point of information.
Councilor Doherty.
Councilor Schuster, I think misspoke and said unexpected instead of unexpended. Unencumbered or unexpended appropriations.
Councilor Schuster, I believe we meant unexpended.
I really couldn't understand her what she was saying. Did I read a word wrong or something?
I'm not sure, Councilor Schuster. It could have been that we didn't hear you correctly either. We're just clarifying that it's unexpended. As opposed to
Unexpended, unencumbered, and unexpended appropriation balances from one fund to another.
That works for me, Councilmember Schuster, and I believe the second is in agreement. All right, council members, let's turn it over to our Finance Director, Jennifer Wade. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Councilors. I have the pleasure of presenting for your consideration this evening the fourth budget amendment of fiscal year 2022. The recommended amendment for this evening totals $1,054,100. Now, of this amount, $83,905 is for carried forward or rebudgeted appropriations from the prior fiscal year due to delays in receipt of goods. $91,817 is for new appropriations you have not already approved through council action, and $878,378 is for amendments that the council has already approved. And so the lion's share of this amendment pertains to items that you have already seen. As is typical, in my budget amendment presentation, I will only focus in detail on the items that would be new to you. Moving into the general fund and the general accounts division, we are recommending two increases. The first for $5,000 for additional appropriations for a citywide servant leadership staff training coordinated by Assistant City Manager Todd Fieser. The second is a $28,458 increase to rebudget unspent Laramie Soccer Club agency support approved by the City Council in April of 2021. The final amendment in the general fund that you have not approved is an $86,817 increase to the IT division to correct the personnel budget for an authorized position that was omitted from the fiscal year 2022 forecast. So just so you understand a little bit more about this amendment, an accurate personnel budget relies on complete position control records. And during the city's review of position control for fiscal year 2022, this omission was not detected, and so the payroll budget is understated as a result. These types of errors can occur despite the best efforts of qualified staff because the city's processes are so highly manual. And this is a great time for me to plug in how excited we are to actually move on from our highly manual systems and actually get our ERP software project started in the next month. The final amendment that you have not already approved is in the wastewater fund. That amendment is an increase of $55,447 to rebudget appropriations for a fleet vehicle purchase. The lion's share of tonight's amendments are actually funded by available cash reserves, but I'd like to point out a few exceptions to that. In the general fund, we are expecting $150,595 upon successful grant application. We are also using $28,458 in rebudget reserves. We are also using rebudget reserves to fund the entire amendment in the wastewater fund for $55,447. And at this time, I would be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Council, do we have any questions? Any questions? Let's take public comment on the item. Seeing none, back to the council. Well, we're certainly on your side in terms of waiting for the completion of the onboarding of this new system so that I can assist the staff in a smoother process, although we do believe it's been a pretty smooth process with our professionals even up until this point. It's good to hear that that software is going to be able to help you out. Council, I don't see any other hands up. So we'll go to the city clerk for a roll call vote on the item.
Somerville,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
yes,
Harrington,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses, 0 no.
That motion carries. Thank you, city clerk. Item number 13, Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that City Council approve the Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP, grant agreement with the Wyoming Department of Transportation in an amount not to exceed $500,000 to support the construction of Spring Creek Trail Phase 1 and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion and a second from Vice Mayor Pierce. Council, I see that we've got Assistant City Manager Todd Feaser with us. I'd like to turn it over to him to provide the background. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Honorable Mayor, City Council, this is the next step in the development of Spring Creek Trail Phase 1. If you may recall, it was towards the end of the year last year that we were able to hire Sarah Reese to complete the grant application for us, and that grant was successful. And we were recently notified that and mailed the grant agreement that you have before you tonight. This would help construct the trail from 30th Street to LaPrelle Park, utilizing the riparian corridor next to the creek with parking lot improvements at LaPrelle Park near the Sisters Bridge. Along with this, we intend to have some improvements to the Spring Creek berm that is along 30th Street, crossing improvements at 30th, crossing improvements at Whiting High School, and then the associated improvements with the parking lot, which is just a dirt area now. Our anticipated construction cost is about $1 million. This is half of it. The other half will come from specific purpose tax funds. As you know, this is the springboard for what I believe is the single most important next piece of the Greenbelt, which is getting down to 3rd Street from this area to provide non-motorized pedestrian mobility in that area. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Feaser. Any questions for Assistant City Manager Feaser on the TAP grant? Councilmember Schuster.
Thank you. The last statement you said, non-motorized vehicles, does that mean the little scooters and e-bikes will not be able to be ridden on those?
Honorable Mayor, through you to Councilor Schuster, the scooters have been slowed down to a snail's pace on the green belts. I don't know that they'd be very fun to ride on those areas. And so it's right now it says non-motorized, but people can take them on there, but they certainly won't go more than, I believe, a walking pace at that point.
What about e-bikes?
Honorable Mayor, through you to Councilor Schuster, e-bikes are going to be governed under some changes. E-bikes will probably still be allowed on the Greenbelt, as that they're still pedal powered and only supposed to be e-assist. So I don't know that we're going to really have any luck in enforcing a restriction on e-bikes on Greenbelt or future trails.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Public comment. Recognize Christina H. Screen name Christina H. Just please go ahead and provide your full name for the council.
Sure, this is Christina Hufford. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you. I just learned about this today, so I'm not coming in with a lot of questions. I just had 3 points to make, and also to thank Todd for sending me some information today. I live across from the Laprelle parking lot, so this will impact me. I think the overall plan is a great idea. However, I'd like to point out that I have concerns about flooding, because that is a flood zone and you'll be paving what has formerly been open land. I have concerns about traffic. I know the Laprelle parking lot is an important place to access the park, but there's access along the park and many other areas along Spring Creek and also, I believe, Holiday. And I'm not sure if there are any parking improvements planned for there. And finally, I just have practical concerns. The YDOT award, if I've read correctly, is up through 2025. Since any construction over there might impact access to my home or access along the street, that's a long period of time without any information about when activities will take place. So I hope that there will be updates or notifications about that.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Back to the council. Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment and thank the city staff for how competitive the application is. I currently serve on the YDOT committee that reviews and approves these and orders them. And to be clear, I recused myself from the City of Laramie application. But they really appreciated the methodical process that we've gone through in planning and taking a step-by-step approach to these projects, as opposed to just coming at the TAP fund with giant one-time projects. And so I just wanted to share that with the council. Really shout out to the staff that continues to put these good applications together. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Somerville. Other questions? Assistant City Manager, do you want to take a minute to perhaps address any of those concerns that we heard about, or is that something that's better left for communication with the resident later?
Honorable Mayor, through you to council, the traffic concerns, I think that by formalizing that parking lot, we actually are going to eliminate some of the additional parking that occurs up in the dirt area that's uncontrolled. So I think we'll probably see a decrease in traffic in that area. All drainage with this is designed to go from the south curb line back to the creek. This has been reviewed thoroughly by the city's hired stormwater engineer, which is Wood, and our own engineering department to make sure that we don't have any impact onto Spring Creek. And then the final one, I'm hoping to get this constructed in 2023. We are a little bit short-staffed right now, maybe spring of 2024. I do not intend to push it out to 2025, but when it comes to noticing, we always notice all surrounding neighborhood with what the project is that's happening. And I don't anticipate this project actually closing any portion of Spring Creek during its construction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we do encourage residents that have concerns or questions about this to continue to forward those to the city so that they can be addressed. Council, any other questions or comments about this? All right, well, we look forward to this being an improvement to the amenities there and an increase into the connectivity of some of these recreational trails. And thank you, Assistant City Manager, for the presentation. City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote on this item?
Gabriel?
Yes.
O'Doherty?
Yes.
Cumby?
Yes.
Harrington?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
Schmeckel?
Yes.
Schuster?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
And Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses, 0 noes.
Thank you. That motion carries. And we're now to item number 14. Councilmember. Councilmember Cumby, we're on item number 14 for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve original ordinance number 2040 on first reading and introduction, amending section 2.20 of Laramie Municipal Code related to Board of Health.
Second.
Motion and a second from Vice Mayor Pierce. And once again, Council, we have Assistant City Manager Beasley here to help us with some of the background. Assistant City Manager, over to you.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, this ordinance change is reflective of what was 9B before, I think, where we changed the bylaws of the Board of Health. And just to go over quickly, we removed all references to the city health officer in those bylaws. We added Chapter 4, body artist and body art establishments, licensing, body artist licensing, tattoo and body piercing, added clarifying language to the requirements of the premises, added amendments that must be approved by City Council, which is standard practice for all boards and commissions. And we corrected fees and license terms to make them more standard so that we don't have a bunch of bylaw changes when they do come through. This ordinance change really mostly reflects to the removal of the city health officer. There's lots of pieces in the bylaws that referred to a city health officer who, from our understanding, hasn't been employed or a part of the city operation for more than 20 years. And the current practice in our region is to utilize the public health officer. To give you an example, in Cheyenne and Laramie County, it's the Cheyenne-Laramie County Health Department takes on the public health officer's duties for the city of Cheyenne and Albany County. And in this situation, the Albany County Public Health Officer would carry on the duties of the city health officer for the Board of Health. So with that being said, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. Councilor Cumby is our liaison to that board and is very involved too. So she may be much better and much gifted at answering some questions than I may.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager. Councilor Cumby, do you have anything you'd like to add by way of the Board of Health discussions around this?
No, I just, the members of the Board of Health, we did a review of the policies and procedures of the board and updated a few things that we identified as not being accurate, and then worked with city staff to achieve that. So now it reflects what we really, how it really is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Covey. Council members, other questions on the changes? Let's see if there's public comment on it. Seeing none, we'll close public comment on the item, and Council will give you a final moment to provide any thoughts or ask any questions. City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote on this item?
Doherty?
Public comment. Didn't we go to public comment?
We did, Councilmember
Yeah.
Doherty.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
Okay. Schuster?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Cumby?
Yes.
Schmeckel?
Yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
Harrington?
Yes.
Pierce?
Sorry, yes.
And Weaver.
Yes.
That is 9 yeses and 0 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That motion carries. Council, that takes us to item number 15. To Vice Mayor Pierce.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Resolution 2022-10, adopting fees in accordance with the Laramie rental. There's two rentals with the Laramie Rental Housing Code and Road Ordinance number 1802, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Second from Councilmember O'Doherty. City Manager Jordan. So you're here to help us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, we had been considering this ordinance over the last 6 to 8 weeks. It was contemplated that if the ordinance passed, that we would bring back a resolution to adopt fees related to the implementation of the ordinance. As you know from the previous discussion, and it is restated in the cover sheet for this item, the ordinance establishes really 3 new elements of city activities. And the first and probably the most notable is the residential rental registration program. The ordinance contemplated a fee associated with that would be established by this resolution and would be an annual fee. So you'll see in the resolution that we are recommending a $20 per year fee. That's roughly $1.66 per month if you were to amortize it over a 12-month period. The second element of the ordinance establishes minimum habitability standards. We will be providing extensive education and support to our landlord and property owning community over the next year. However, no fee is associated with those efforts. And the third element of the ordinance is a complaint resolution program and the enforcement of the habitability standards through tenant complaints if they feel that those habitability standards have not been met. Along with that, the ordinance allowed for a filing fee to accompany any complaints filed by tenants, and we are recommending a $15 filing fee when a complaint is registered with the city. However, the council should note that per your authorization, we will implement these 3 elements of the ordinance in a phased approach over the next year, with the complaint program not beginning to function until January 1st of 2023, so almost a year from now. So we're recommending $15 filing fee for complaints for tenants and a $20 annual fee for residential rental for property owners and landlords. If you have any questions, we're certainly happy to answer those, and I'll let you take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilmember O'Doherty.
Do we have a filing fee for any of the other licenses that we have? If people have complaints about auctioneer license, carnival, junk dealer, mobile vending, pawnbroker, private security, roller skating rink, secondhand dealer, solid waste collector, or vehicle for hire, do any of those have a filing fee if citizens have a complaint?
Through you, Mayor, Councilor O'Doherty, there is no complaint process authorized in ordinance for, I didn't write down every program that you mentioned, but as you know, the city has almost no business licenses. At least this city doesn't. It's very common in other cities. But we have a very limited license to some of the things that you just mentioned, Councilor O'Doherty. There's no corresponding complaints that are received by the city, and so the answer to your question, there are no filing fees. And I would invite the deputy clerk, if you made a lot of those programs are within your office, if I have misspoke on any of them, not having written them down, please correct me.
Saying nothing from City Clerk. Other questions? Other questions for the City Manager on the program? Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. I have an amendment to offer whenever you feel is appropriate.
Thank you, Councilmember Somerville. I'd ask you to wait just a moment until we have a round of questions on the overall motion. City Manager, the fee process of setting the fees, that's done on a biannual basis and will be done with the other fees that are associated with the other business licenses that the city does have. Is that correct?
Mayor, that is correct. In the ordinance itself, I had recommended that we only have the landlords register their rentals every 2 years, and that we set the fees associated with both registering rentals and with complaints every 2 years. And that was really more of a matter of just trying to minimize the amount of work that our landlord and property owner communities would have to do. So that's a notable point. This resolution will establish those fees through now through December 31st of 23, and we would bring back a new resolution in January of 24.
And City Manager, my follow-up question to that is for the other businesses that participate and are charged a licensing fee, that would be an identical process, at least in terms of the calendar that they comply with. Is that also correct?
If your question is in that it's an annual fee, that is correct.
Thank you. Yes, that was my question. Other questions from the council before I go to Councilmember Somerville for her forthcoming amendment? Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll offer this amendment, and if I get a second, I have an explanation. I would move to change the complaint resolution and enforcement filing fee to $0. Just to be clear, that's the $15 fee for the tenants.
Second.
There's a motion and a second from Councilmember Cumby for the discussion. Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that the council has discussed this very briefly a few meetings ago. And I spent quite a bit of time on this today. What I'm interested in doing is making sure that those lowest income residents that are at most at risk for living in houses that are, or apartments that are unsafe, that they don't have any barriers to come in and file. I've had a lot of discussion today about staff workload, which I certainly might be concerned about frivolous complaints, which could be a future issue for sure. But in all of the solutions, everything gets pretty complex. And so it really, to me, boiled down to the question of, we don't know whether we have a frivolous complaint problem yet. We don't know what this workload will look like on staff. And so I'd like to offer this amendment to the council for consideration now, with the knowledge and the intention that if we get a month into this program or 3 months into this program, and the city manager's office is fielding tons of what they would consider frivolous complaints, or that there's other problems that make them want us to reconsider the filing fee, that they could bring that forward. And in that time, it would give them time to potentially design a program to support those who would maybe qualify in a hardship category, maybe with one of our community partners or something along those lines, but would give them appropriate time to look at those options. So for right now, I would ask the council to go ahead and consider zeroing out that fee and get the program going, and then revisiting that at a future date if it's deemed necessary by city staff. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Somerville. Questions? Councilmember O'Doherty.
I support this amendment because, in fact, we've heard from the landlords they're going to pass on the fee, the registration fee to tenants. And so the tenants will be paying the registration fee for the landlord and paying a complaint fee. So I think it's fair to wait and see if we have frivolous complaints. And if so, then re-examine this fee structure. Thank you.
Councilmember Cumby.
I also support this amendment. Many of the clients that I have worked with who are low income are often faced with choices of milk, diapers, or gas for work in the morning. And these really often are the individuals who are living in substandard housing due to lack of income. And I would hate to put an additional burden on that. And if our concern is about frivolous filing, then I suggest we might initiate a penalty, and that if one does file a fraudulent complaint, then there could be a fine up to X amount, so that we have a penalty rather than a filing fee. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Quickly, I couldn't have said it better. Thank you, Councilor Cumby. Exactly my thoughts.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Pierce. Council, other questions on the amendment for the staff or the motion maker? I have a question for the city manager. City manager, given this last point that's come up, that wasn't something that was envisioned, I don't think, in the original ordinance, but could probably be addressed after your office has time to implement the program and then see what we get in terms of volume of complaints, whether or not some other type of fee could then be associated with complaints that weren't substantiated. Is that something that you're comfortable with, at least in terms of a possible direction we can go?
Mayor, I think so, although I would want to clarify. One of the reasons for a filing fee can be kind of a best practice to head off erroneous complaints. So that's one element of it. The other reason for a filing fee in this regard would be to help offset some of the costs of administration of those filing fees. And I'll share with you that, I understand where council are with respect to this amendment, and we can absolutely pledge to monitor the rate of complaints that we might start to receive in January 1st of 2023. And we will absolutely monitor the amount of staff time that's required to investigate each of those complaints as well as the outcome of the complaints. So it's understood to us that we don't have good data here yet. I will say, though, the staff that are intending to receive and have to investigate these complaints right now are contemplating about 4 to 6 complaints a month potentially, and estimating 8 to 12 hours to administer, investigate, validate, or invalidate each of those complaints. So those are really, loosey-goosey, frankly, numbers that we're looking at right now. But I share them with you because I think it's important that council understand that the fee was proposed not just to head off erroneous complaints, but to help staff keep pace with whatever volume we might see. So comfortable if this amendment passes from a staff standpoint, but we will monitor and we'll absolutely come back to you guys maybe first quarter of next year to share some real data and think about whether a filing fee or, as Councillor Cumby has said, some kind of alternative fee might be warranted at that time.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Doherty.
We don't charge people that file complaints for if the neighbor's sidewalk is icy or if the weeds are growing, and those are things that take staff time. So to me, it's worth it. And again, if it turns out to be, we were assured that all the landlords in Laramie are good. So if it turns out to be the case, then we'll just have a good way to connect to landlords when there's a problem of like snow removal or emergency, and it won't overtax staff. But if it does, then I think we re-examine at that point. Thank you.
Other questions before we go to public comment on the amendment? Go to public comment on the amendment. We'll go in order of hands raised. Let's go to Christopher Stratton.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much for implementing this ordinance. It's great to see the factor that we're actually trying to do something about the rental situations in Laramie and give renters rights that they need. Unfortunately, with the factor that there is already backlash on this with several landlords that are not renewing leases right now because they're going to be completely remodeling their facility more for bringing up the rent than anything else and pushing a little bit of a queue in this. I think that it's definitely not something like has been said before. You call in because landlords aren't cleaning off the sidewalks. I did that today already. And unfortunately, our best jobs in Laramie, I make about $1,000 or $1,400 a month. Most of that's going to rent. It's really kind of fun to try and put food on the table. I wish that you had more oversight and more regulation than what you already have right now, maybe like rental caps or something, but I think it would be devastating towards a lot of us to have a fee to pay to make a complaint. I am completely and utterly for the aspect of if it's an erroneous complaint, fine. But thank you very much for putting this ordinance into place, and I hope that there's more to come. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time to be here and share your views with the council on this item. Let's go to Mr. Brett Glass. Let Brett Glass into the meeting. You have the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I think that before you implement this amendment, you might want to look at what happens in the circuit court, because you get complaints there. And if you file a complaint in small claims court, it's about $10 to file and then a little bit more to go ahead and get it served. And we see a lot of frivolous complaints there, even though the total comes to more than $15. People sometimes just want to make trouble for a landlord. Sometimes they, in fact, have done something like not paid their rent or not kept up not kept up their own responsibilities, and they will go and do that there. If they will do that and have to pay substantially more in the circuit court, certainly certainly a $15, which is a very minimal amount, is not a barrier to anyone who has any real trouble. So I would strongly recommend that you keep some sort of a fee. There needs to be a little bit of friction, I think. There shouldn't be a lot, and it shouldn't be a hardship, but it certainly should be possible to deter frivolous complaints somehow, because otherwise you really are sure to get them. So on and against the amendment.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time to be here and share your views on the topic. Next comment, let's go to Joshua Watanabe. Let's let Mr. Watanabe into the meeting. You have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I hope you will support this amendment and take the time to review what needs to happen, what doesn't. As we heard in the discussion over this ordinance to begin with, while small claims court has a minimal fee, these minimal fees add up for those in our community most at risk. For those on fixed incomes, whether they're seniors, whether they're struggling families, $15 can be the difference very much between buying diapers, putting gas in the car, going to work. This is very much a hardship that we see on a daily basis. And I think there are a lot of very serious concerns and things that were brought up that we just don't have the data on yet. But there will be time to make those corrections if and when needed at that point in time. So I hope you will support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time to be here to share your views with the council topic. Go Amanda Pittman. Let's let Ms. Pittman into the room. You have the floor.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I want to say that I support the zero fee amendment. I wanted to say that I think that frivolous complaints are highly unlikely due to the risk of filing a complaint, the risk of enraging a landlord who has control over your life and your habitation, and your safety is actually really dangerous and is a last resort, is something that you want to do if you have no other options. And so I think the city opening this as an option is really important, but I don't think that people are going to be risking that if for no reason. Also, the $15 fee is really oddly proportioned compared to the fee for the landlord, which is what, a $20 fee? It's just really odd that it's that much compared to the amount for the landlord. Furthermore, if someone has to file multiple complaints in some of the worst housing, that is going to add up. So, especially for the people who are on lower incomes. So, I think that if anything, we shouldn't be fining people if a complaint is considered frivolous, because it's not going to be considered frivolous to the person who's filing it. I think that people deserve to be able to petition the government for redress if there are issues. So that's all I have, and I appreciate you considering the zero fee amendment.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and taking time out of your evening to share your views with the council. Recognize Samuel Newman. So let Mr. Newman into the room, and you have the floor.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I won't try to repeat anyone's points too much. I do support this amendment. I feel like we need to be encouraging as many people, if they have issues with their housing situation, to file. And as many have pointed out, those individuals might be in low income situations where a $15 fee is really major. So I think that's really important. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time to be here and share your views on the topic. Other public comment on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment on the amendment. Council. Councilmember Schmeckel.
Thank you, Mayor. I stand in support of this amendment. I feel that having a fee that is equivalent to more than twice the hourly wage as minimum wage is probably a little bit burdensome for some of our most disadvantaged folks. And I would strongly encourage, since we've heard this evening that maybe $15 isn't enough to dissuade false filing, that maybe the filing fee in general at this point without data is just not worthwhile of taxing a good majority of our potential citizens that are renting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Harrington.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to remind the council on this amendment that when we passed the original rental code ordinance, we discussed in pretty extensive detail that the existing framework under state statute was cumbersome and expensive. So I would just, in support of this amendment, say that adding fees and any sort of what could be perceived as a roadblock to filing sets us up for a very similar outcome as the thing that we have worked so hard to address. So I will leave it at that and encourage support from the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? All right. Comment that I'd like to make before we proceed to the vote on this is we have some information from the city manager's office be in charge of the implementation of the program, as we know from the ordinance, and will at a future date come to the council either to renew the existing fee structure as we see it tonight, perhaps with the amendment, and be in a position to provide us with some better information. And I think that will help inform the council's future choices about that, and perhaps inform the council about any other adjustments that we might want to make. And so with that in mind, it seems reasonable, whichever way the council decides, because I do think we're going to hear from the city manager's office in the future in terms of volume of complaints and how the program is progressing. So we'll keep that in mind, and we'll understand that there will be a period of time here where we'll collect some information that I think will help us. It sounds like I'm being told, or it looks like I'm being told that. A little hard to hear. I don't know. Let's try to get the microphone right there, folks. I see Janine. Sorry, the city manager's straining. I apologize. Seeing no other hands up for comment, why don't we go to a roll call vote on the amendment? City Clerk.
Humby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses, 0 no, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That motion carries. Back to the main motion. Comments or questions on the main motion? Council Member Somerville, and then I'll go to the next hand. Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick comment to city staff as we roll out, as we roll this program out and we've set up a fee structure. I just want to encourage the city staff to come back to the council with any additional supports that you may need, financial or staff wise, as you kind of are setting this up. We certainly don't want to strain city staff if they find themselves extraordinarily busy, you need more staff, whatever that is. I just want to encourage you to come back to council with any needs to help support the program. Thanks.
Councilmember O'Doherty.
I support this because I think the fee is very minimal when I compared it to all the other licenses we have for businesses. Like the food truck, I think was $50, and so a year. So I have a choice to go to a food truck and never go there again if I don't like it. Once I've signed a lease, I don't have a lot of choices. So I think a $20 fee is very reasonable. Thank you.
Councilmember Schuster.
Thank you. Mine doesn't have much to do this, but just as one of our speakers said that he might not be able to renew his lease because of improvements, I think this is one thing we really have to look at. We have a big year coming up. Rock River is going to start breaking ground on their wind generation, just like our city manager talked about. We're going to enlarge 300 students this year, and we are already reserving an apartment complex that will no longer be on the market. And I'm afraid at the end of this year, starting next fall, we are going to see a real apartment shortage in this town. Between landlords making improvements, a workforce coming to this town, and increase in school sizes is all going to contribute to this. And I'm really afraid of what is going to be left over for people. And that if you, and I don't want to use that word, if you don't like it, then rent someplace else. But I'm afraid we are going to have a problem this year. So I suggest people find what they want and make sure they have it for next year. That's about the biggest thing I can make a statement on. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments on the main motion or questions? We'll go to public comment on the main motion. I'd like to recognize Brett Glass. Let's let Mr. Glass into the room for a comment on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to comment on the main motion. Here in Wyoming, we believe in limited government. You know, we recognize that when government grows too big, it inevitably becomes wasteful and corrupt and harmful. And that's one reason why the Wyoming Constitution sets strict limits on what cities are allowed to do. Now, this resolution creates an illegal tax which is beyond the authority of a city in Wyoming to impose by resolution, by ordinance, or even by charter ordinance. And yes, it is a tax. It is not a fee, because you have no choice whether or not you pay it. You're compelled to. And you get nothing for it. In fact, the community would be harmed by what it would fund, a vast expansion of the city bureaucracy, regulating more than half of the housing within the city limits. And of course, there are some key owners of housing who would not be required to kick in. Those include UW, WCDA, the Cheyenne Housing Authority, and a couple of organizations that lobbied you for exemptions and got them, even though they have been known to offer substandard housing themselves. Now, this tax is also double what city staff said at various times that it would be. Their assertions regarding the amount were inconsistent throughout the meetings, but they said several times during your discussions that it would be $15 to $20 per biennium. In this resolution, though, it's $20 per year. This is another reason why people do not trust the bureaucracy, and I think they have good reason not to. At this rate, the tax would rake in about $250,000 per year that would go toward creating a bloated bureaucracy, and the city would be taking this money away from tenants, to whom the expense would have to be passed on. Now, the information that has been presented to you is also not correct in another way. If you look on the sheet that was presented to council, staff claims that the legal authority for this tax is granted by Wyoming Statutes Title I, Chapter 21, Article 12. But in fact, just the opposite is true. That article preempts not just the imposition of the tax, but also the entire ordinance, because the statute sets the rules for residential rental properties throughout the entire state, and constitutionally the council isn't allowed to override that. Now, in an email I sent to all of you this weekend, I asked that the entire ordinance be brought back to the table for reconsideration as per Robert's rules, but seeing as this has not been done, I'd like you to reconsider this violation of the Wyoming Constitution and consider instead not attempting to create an illegal tax that will undoubtedly be challenged in court. To continue with this resolution as written would demonstrate that council didn't care about its oath of office in which each member pledged to uphold the Wyoming Constitution or the rule of law. It would, if it's not challenged and nullified, as I believe it would be, raise rents, deter maintenance of rental units, and make housing less available and affordable. So, if you don't vote this resolution down as I believe you should, please at least remove the illegal tax and eliminate at least one of the harmful aspects of the ordinance that you voted for a couple of weeks ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for taking time to share your views. Let's go to Christopher Stratton. Let Mr. Stratton into the room or comment on the main motion.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I am definitely for this ordinance, and as I have said before, as previous statements have stated just before me, we need more regulation in this town, not less. We truthfully need to be able to live off of the wages that we are able to make in a town that doesn't have the greatest jobs, University of Wyoming being one of the best of them. And again, I will say $23,500 a year, most of that goes to rent. I appreciate the city for actually taking action against the landlords, because we as citizens have been preyed upon by them for the entire time that I have been renting, and pretty much my entire life. And we don't have any regress in being able to deal with those situations. I hope that you do look at more regulations like rent caps, which whenever I talked to Senator Provenza, she stated that that would be in the purview of the city council to do, as well as the factor that we all know that this action that you had taken is completely and totally in your rights to do, and you should be doing more. I appreciate it. I thank you for your time and for you actually trying to look out for renters in town. It's truthfully needed. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time to share your views. Do we have any other public comment on the main motion for the fee schedule? Three minutes, Jordan.
Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to address one comment recently made as it goes to maybe the value of staff comments. It was inaccurately stated that city staff indicated the fee for registering rentals would be $15 to $20 every 2 years. And I did just go back and review the material to make sure there was no inadvertent typographical error, but I have sent to the clerk the presentation made on all 3 readings, and I don't know if Ryan just got that, but if he could pull that up, I can show you that last slide in the presentation, where on each of 3 readings of this ordinance in 3 public meetings, the fees were presented as being projected to be $15 to $20 yearly registration and filing fee. Certainly that was always the intention, and that is how the city staff presented our estimates to both you and to the city council, or excuse me, to the city council and the public as you were considering this ordinance on all 3 occasions. Thanks, Ryan.
The city clerk's provided the slide from the presentation that was referenced for reference in this discussion. Council members, do we have any other comments or questions regarding the item? Council, I want to make a quick comment, which is just that I think there's going to be some period of adjustment and information gathering, and I think we've heard that from our staff, and we've acknowledged it in our discussions, and heard it even in some of the commentary over the next year and into the year that follows it. That'll help inform future discussions about this and really provide us with a picture of where this is going. My hope continues to be that this is not an ordinance that needs to be utilized on a regular basis to a heavy extent. The goal of the council here is not to create a situation where we have adversarial relationships between our tenants and landlords. What it is intended to do is to try to address some problems that we're aware of. How widespread they are is difficult to pinpoint, and one of the reasons that a fee is necessary is that we're unsure of the administrative costs of that, the administrative burden of that, and we rarely license businesses and charge those fees if we don't feel like there's going to be some administrative burden. And I think that's the standard practice for the city and why we're considering this now. I do want to just make that comment about the hope here is not to create adversarial relationships. And I think that we've all been pretty clear that that is not our intention. City Clerk, let's have a roll call vote.
Somerville,
Yes.
Schuster,
No.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Gabriel,
No.
Cumby,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That is 7 yeses and 2 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That motion carries. That takes us into item number 16, public comments on non-agenda items. If there's any comments on non-agenda items from members of the public in attendance? Just a minute. And seeing none, we'll close the public comment period for public comment on non-agenda items and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is number 17, consideration of future council work session topics and upcoming meetings. Council members. Councilmember Schuster.
Thank you. Not much on a future work session meeting, but how about those Cowboys? They won a really good game down Nevada, and in one poll, they're now ranked 27th in the nation. So really excited to see that, just in showing local support for our University Cowboys and Cowgirls. They're doing both excellent. I've talked to someone on staff here, and he has tickets to go to Las Vegas for the Mountain West Championship, and he doesn't realize how jealous I am of him. So just wanted to show some support.
I think that's okay, Councilmember Schuster. They've had a rocky season up till now, and so it's good to see a win. It has not been an easy season. Other discussion about upcoming meetings, Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. Related to a work session, but a question for the city manager. The city manager, I know we discussed it a little bit in our intergovernmental committee. Can you remind me about when we usually do a work session on the fifth penny? Or I'm sorry, the renewal for this upcoming year?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, Councilor Somerville. We typically start talking with the governing bodies in Rock River and also at the county in the spring. And as you correctly mentioned, the Intergovernmental Committee did take this up, recognizing the need to renew the fifth penny general purpose tax this year. I did share some additional information, incidentally, today on deadlines with that Intergovernmental Committee. So you may all have that in your inbox.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I certainly think we need to get that on the agenda when it's time appropriate to have consultation with Rock River and Albany County.
Thank you. Council members, I'd like to draw your attention to the meeting calendar. Just mentioned again, the council retreat, which is a component of the goal setting for the council moving into next year, coming up on the 25th and 26th, work sessions for review of council goals and discussion around progress and potentially council suggestions about future goals or continuing work on existing goals coming up soon. Any other? Yes, Councilmember Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just curious, in the past, I served on several committees that promoted the fifth penny, worked with the county and other agencies, and I was curious if Janine was thinking about forming another committee to go out and promote the fifth penny this year.
Through you, Mayor, Councilor Gabriel, we do here at the city manager's office kind of spearhead the effort to get public information out about renewing the fifth penny tax. We have worked with you specifically over the years in many capacities, as you know, as a commissioner and also as a member of the, I think it's a political action committee that forms well outside of the city. But we have provided information to that committee in past years. So far, I'm unaware of any committee like that convening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gabriel. Other questions about upcoming meetings or future work session topics? I don't see any. Council members, that takes us to the end of our agenda and to item number 18. Councilmember Schuster.
I'm glad this is just a short and sweet one. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting